annual financial aid night. I don't know if you guys have any of you have dealt with this in the past. Every year there's updates and changes. If this is your first or only, it's very pertinent information, or it's been a while since you've been in the game. It's really good information too, because a lot of things are updated. I know when we first started doing this with my oldest, as compared to now, there's a lot less information that you have to enter on the FAFSA website because they use the IRS data retrieval tool. I'm sure I'll talk about that a little bit. But one thing we all know about college, it's super expensive, right? And it's a super big endeavor. So getting all the information that you can get is really important. That's why we always have college come in and talk about it. Tonight we have Holly Langenfeld from Walsh University, who's going to go over a lot of things, process. I'm sure she'll answer a lot of questions. And then we will, of course, leave time at the end. If you have any questions for the group, we'll take them. If you have any questions for her individually, feel free, we'll hang around afterwards. And if something comes up later on the next week, or when you're filling out stuff and you have a question, if you bring it to Mrs. Eitner or I, and we don't have an answer, we'll contact Holly or get an answer for you, okay? Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Holly, and I'll take it away.
Good evening. I'm Holly Langenfeld. I'm Associate Director of Financial Aid at Walsh University. And the information I'm going to give you tonight is for all colleges. It's not just Walsh. I've been in financial aid for almost 18 years. I am a first-generation college student, so I was the first in my family to go to college and graduate from college. I have a daughter who graduated from Walsh. I have a son who is a sophomore at Walsh. Sorry for all the Walsh family, but still. My son was an athlete last year. He played baseball for Walsh and then decided to focus on studies. So I kind of have some information from the mom side, from the financial aid side, from the parent side. So again, I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. How many of you have children that have already been through this? Okay. And the rest of you, is this your first child going into college potentially? All right, well, welcome. This is a great place to start, so I'm very happy to have you guys here. I know I'm going to show you a lot of slides, but it's more just talking points, so please don't be overwhelmed. And again, you can ask any questions you want. I will be glad to follow up with you. It is a lot of information, but I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible for you. Okay, so a few things we're going to talk about are just some financial aid terms. You have your COA, which is your cost of attendance. We'll get more into that. SAI, Student Index, this is stuff you're going to start to hear with the FAFSA. And some different types of financial aid. And then you probably already started to hear the buzzword FAFSA, which is free application for financial or federal student aid. FAFSA, all it is an application to apply for financial aid. You do not get money from this application. It's just a form that allows colleges to understand how much financial aid they can give you. And then sometimes there's special circumstances with families that might change your financial aid status with your individual school. So financial aid is just different types of aid that helps parents and students pay for post-secondary education. All right, COA, cost of attendance. That is just all the expenses that are taken into consideration when your financial aid is packaged for a school. You have your tuition and fees, you have your housing and your food expenses. So even if your student does not live on campus, we still take into consideration that you're going to have to pay to feed your child or to house your child, either on campus or off campus. You have books, you have supplies, transportation. Again, if your child is living on campus, there's still transportation costs that are included in this. And then there's always those miscellaneous expenses. You have other food expenses, you have other supplies, clothing, medical expenses. Just all this is taken into consideration. So if you hear cost of attendance, it's just a lot of different costs that are considered how much financial aid what is determined from your FAFSA information. So it's just a number that when you fill out the FAFSA, it has your student contribution, which is any income information from the student, and then your parent contribution. So that information goes on to the FAFSA, and it comes up with a student aid index number. And this is just a number that tells us as the school what type of aid that you qualify for. So you take your cost of attendance, so which is that cost to attend that college, and you minus that student aid index, which again, that's given to us from the FAFSA, and that determines your financial need. So when you apply to a school and they talk about your financial need, that determines if you get need-based aid, which we'll go more into, which is free money towards your education, or it determines what type of student loans that you might qualify for. So these are just kind of buzzwords that you're gonna start to hear, but don't get overwhelmed by them. The school should be able to explain to you what it means and how it affects your students. So when we talk financial aid, we have need-based aid and non-need-based aid. So again, when we look back at the previous slide, when you determine your financial need, some people might have a lot of financial aid. Maybe if you have a lower income, or if you have a higher income, you might not have as high as your need would be less. So that determines if you have a need-based aid, which would be like your grants, your free money towards your education, your Pell Grant or other grants that is free, or you would have non-need-based aid, which would also be like merit scholarships, your talent-based things. You might get a choir scholarship, you might get a band scholarship, you might get an athletic scholarship. Those are all considered non-need-based aid scholarship. So when you talk about financial aid, I know a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA because I don't qualify for financial aid. Financial aid encompasses so much. It encompasses anything that the school will give you as far as a merit scholarship. The merit scholarships are what is determined when your student applies based on your GPA, based on any entrance test that you might take with that school. That's going to determine your merit scholarships. Again, if you get athletic aid, that is non-need-based aid. If you get a choir or band scholarship or other scholarships, those are not based on need. Need-based is based on that FAFSA information. If you show that you have a higher need based on your income and all your other financial information, you might qualify for some additional aid that others may not. Any questions so far? I know I just threw a lot of information at you already. Is it sort of making a little bit of sense, the breakdown? Thank you. All right, different types of financial aid. So we have our scholarships, as I just mentioned. Every school that you're going to go to is probably going to offer you some type of merit scholarship. Grants is free money towards your education. Grants you do not have to pay back. You probably heard of a Pell Grant, or maybe an OPAL grant, which is an Ohio grant. Loans, you do have to pay back. Loans, as long as you're enrolled in school at least half time, they are deferred while the student is in school. So you can take out those loans to help you with your education and not pay them until after you graduate or quit attending. You also have work-study employment, so if you have a higher need based on your FAFSA information, you may qualify for work-study. That means you can get a job on campus and work with your institution and earn money. I know at Walsh you can work, usually it's only 5 to 6 hours a week, and you would receive a paycheck for whatever hours you work once a month. So again, that is a need-based type of aid that you will be told with your school if you qualify for that or not. So again, work study, you have to work to earn that money and you receive some type of paycheck. Loans is in the student name. So if a student takes out these loans, the student is responsible to pay those loans back. The scholarships, gift aid, again, that's free money, grants is free money. So remember, gift aid is the free money that you don't have to pay back. These sources of financial aid, you have the federal government. Again, these are federal loans, federal grants. We have state money. They also have state grants that you do not have to pay back, that gift aid. Colleges and universities give you, again, scholarships. I know at Walsh we have merit scholarships that you get as you come in, but we have a lot of other scholarships available. You can go onto our website. I'm sure any school that you're interested in, you can go onto those websites, look for any institutional-based scholarships. There's a lot of scholarships out there to apply for. There's also private sources, which could also be other outside scholarships. I'm sure if you are seniors, you probably will start to get notice about applying for scholarships for your senior year. Some of them can be renewed throughout your 4 years of college. Some are just for that first year. There's money to be given out. You just have to do the work. So as a student, I highly recommend that you look into outside scholarships. If you go onto Google and Google, Summit County scholarships, if you live in Stark County, check with if you belong to a church, if you belong to 4-H, any of those, all those have scholarships. There's a lot of money to be given out. You just have to put in the work to do essays and apply for those scholarships. Parents, check with your employers. Sometimes employers give out scholarships for children to go to school, so definitely see if your employers have those type of scholarships that you could apply for your student to receive. Also, sometimes employers will give employer reimbursement. So I know McDonald's is a great one for students. If you work at McDonald's or you get a job at McDonald's through college, they will pay you up to $5,250, most employers, towards your education. I forget exactly what McDonald's does specifically, but earn money towards your degree by working there and still get money to help pay for your college. So something to keep in mind. So again, the federal government is the largest source of financial aid. That's where all your federal loans come from. You probably heard of subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans. If you have the choice to take between the two loans, you always want to take the subsidized first. Subsidized does not accrue interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized accrues interest as soon as they disperse it to the student. So you will potentially be offered both, but you always, if you have a choice, always take the subsidized first. And then if you want to apply for any federal aid, you do have to fill out that FAFSA every year to qualify for that federal aid for those federal loans and also the federal grants. And a lot of the federal aid is need-based, but again, like the unsubsidized loan, you do not have to show need for that. So different types of the federal aid. Again, the Pell Grant, that is a grant that is free money that you do not have to pay back. The Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, that is another grant to help those that might have higher need to help them pay for school. The Teach Grant, those that are looking to go into teaching, this is something to think about. It does start as a grant. There is some requirements for it, but if you teach in a high-need, low-income school area, then that could potentially stay a grant and you might not have to pay it back. However, there are qualifications that if you don't do that, it would turn into a loan. But for those that are looking into going into teaching, it's definitely worth looking into the Teach Grant. Again, work study, as I mentioned, you can get a job on campus and work to earn money. And then you have your federal loans, your student loans, and then as a parent, there is an option for a parent to apply for a PLUS loan for their student. That PLUS loan is in the parent's name and would be the responsibility of the parent to pay that. You cannot roll it over into the student. But studentaid.gov is a wonderful source that can explain all this type of aid to you, explain the different loans to you. With state grants, there is the Ohio College Opportunity Grant. If you are a high school student or a dependent student, you could qualify for that as long as you've lived in Ohio for at least a year. It's based on your parents' residency, or if you're an independent student, you have to be in Ohio for a year. But one thing I want to make sure, especially for the males in the room, for the state of Ohio to receive the OPOP grant, males have to register for selective service. The federal government used to require selective service registration for the OPOP grant, but federal does not require that. State grants still require males of the age of 18 to register for selective service. So keep that in mind. If you qualify for this grant and you are a male student, you would have to register to get it. Each school has different deadlines to apply for financial aid, so please keep that in mind. The FAFSA is supposed to open up every year moving forward October 1st. It has become a law that they have to have the FAFSA open October 1st each year to apply. Each school has different deadlines for a certain amount of financial aid. Walsh has limited funds, a work study of the SEOG grant. We only have so much money we can go out, so we have different deadlines each year. Those that have turned in their FAFSA by that date are the first ones to qualify for that money. So whatever schools you're interested in, just make sure you keep up on deadlines to see when you need to apply for that financial aid to potentially qualify for those funds. If you're filling out the FAFSA for the first time, you will need to, both the parent and the student will need to create an FSA ID. So it is a username and password that you will want to keep because you will use this for all the time, all your children. If you decide to go to school, it's very important that you keep this information because you will continue to use it year after year. So the website is good. It will help you create an account. It'll help you set up your information. You will need this to fill out the FAFSA. So if you have not done so already, the first steps you want to do is to create the FSA ID and password. So your username and password, both the student and the parent. If you are a married couple and you filed jointly, you most likely will only need one parent to do this. If you filed separate, you're going to need both parents to create passwords and usernames for this. So it wouldn't hurt just to set up for both parents, for those that are married, to have those available. But again, this information you will need every year. When you start talking to schools, you're going to hear about dependency statuses. Are you dependent? Are you independent? So dependent students require parental information on the FAFSA. These are the requirements that determine if you are dependent. You have to be born before January 1st to be independent. You have to be married, a graduate student, active duty. You have to have children. Now keep in mind, if you have a child that does not automatically make you independent, meaning you would not need your parental information. If your parent pays for your child, supports your child, then you are still considered dependent. Some schools may handle that a little differently, but I know at Walsh, if your parent is raising your child and supporting you and your child, then you're still considered a dependent student. But if you are a student that has a child and you are raising that child and supporting that child, then you would be considered independent and would not need parental information on your FAFSA. And some schools may require documentation for that. So if you answered yes to any of these, then you would be considered an independent student, meaning not needing parental information. If not, then you are dependent and you do need that parental information on your FAFSA. whatever school you're applying to, I would definitely talk to those schools. They have different situations. A lot of time, a third-party statement is required, but it does happen quite often. So if there's a situation that you might not have contact with your parents, or a situation where you've been out of the home with your parents, please talk to your guidance counselor or talk to any schools that you're working with, and they can work on that dependency override, that application to see if you qualify to become independent. The student will start the FAFSA first. When the student does this, again, if you go to studentaid.gov, and it will walk you through applying, starting your first FAFSA, the student will start the information first. Then the students will invite the parent to apply. So it's going to send an email and a link to the parent to complete the FAFSA. And I know we've already had a lot of people already do it this year. It's very simple. You just get the email that says you've been invited to complete the FAFSA with your child, and you click on the link and it takes you right onto there to enter your information. If the parent tries to start it first, it's not going to let you. So I suggest that you sit down with your students. That's just found it easiest when I've done it with my son recently. We sit down together. We have our computers and our phones because it's going to send verification codes and you're going to need them. It's just easier if you're able to sit down together and do it all at once. That way you can kind of help each other through it. But again, if the student started, the invitation will go out to the parent.
So, question.
Yes.
So is this when the parent would then be eligible to create their account name and password?
You can create your name and password now. You could go ahead and set up your ID, your username and your ID, also called FSA ID.
Okay.
Then the student will go start the FAFSA and send you an invite. Then that will allow you to log in and add your information to it.
All right, and we create our FAFSA ID and password. Is that also student aid?
Studentaid.gov, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right, I just want to put it up because I was like, no, we already had that.
Yes, yes,
So, okay,
yes.
thank you.
Can you create your own?
You would use that. Yeah. If you already have a username and password that you've already created for your own FAFSA, you will use that for your student's FAFSA.
Can you wait for this to create the parents' ID and all that? Can you wait for the invite before I create?
Yes, it will not let you add information until you have that. Now, I know last year it took a few days, sometimes to get the FSA ID and everything submitted and approved, so it might not be an instantaneous. If it takes a few days to get, an alert, it's fine, but it will go through. So I just suggest start making those username and passwords now, just so you're ready to fill out those tests. So again, once you get the email, you accept the invitation, and you go right on to the FAFSA to add your information. So when the parent goes in to submit the FAFSA information, it is going to ask for a few different things. It's going to ask for tax information, but if you file through the IRS, they've made it so much easier. They will ask for your permission to link your taxes. And generally, it's a quick, as long as everything's filed, everything's through, you get permission, they get the tax information directly from the IRS. It asks for the tax filing status, number in college, the family size, assets, which, basically your checking, your savings. It does not include your residency that you live in. It does not include retirement, but it does include like 529 plans, or if you have, rental properties. But as you go through the FAFSA, they've made it very simple, very nice. At each question, you can click on it, and it'll tell you what exactly they're looking for. So I will say they definitely, as much as a mess it was a few years ago when they completely revamped it, it's made it a lot more of a simpler process to file. Any questions on this part? And Usually you'll know right away if your taxes link up and everything goes through. If for some reason your taxes do not link up and it says they're not able to retrieve that IRS information, then the school that you are applying to will request copies of your tax returns. And when you're filling the 26-27 FAFSA out, you're using 2024 tax information. I apologize, I should have said that from the beginning. So again, the FAFSA looks 2 years back, so you're going to use 2024 tax information. So if the school would ask for that documentation, they would be asking for those copy of those tax returns. If you are an independent student, then again, you need spouse information also on your FAFSA. And then again, you have to give consent for the IRS to transfer that information over to your FAFSA. A FAFSA to fill out is completely free. Please do not fall for any online program that says they can help you file it, they can help you save money, they can help you get more money. Please do not fall for any of that. It is a free application. It is fairly simple. There's no need to see a tax preparer to help you unless you have a business or something. You might have some questions with some tax information, but in general, please do not click on any link that tells you that they can do it for you for a small fee. When you're talking about family sizes, basically who is in the household, are you supporting, do you support maybe grandma or grandpa? If you have another child that lives at another school, they're still considered in your household. So they may, you may have a child that's a senior here, but a child that's also at Ohio State. They're still considered in your household because they still live with you. They're just away at college. If you need to make corrections on your FAFSA, you can do that. You would just log back into your FAFSA information and make corrections, and then that updated information would go to the school. I will say when you file the FAFSA, it is as of the day that you were filing. So I know sometimes we have college students that are going to get married in April. Well, what do I put on my FAFSA? Well, if you're filing it today and you're not married, you're not married. You don't go in and change it once you get married. So whatever your bank account is the day that you file it, whatever your marital status is, you don't go in and change it. Sometimes you might be selected for a process called verification with these schools, and that's where the Department of Ed requires us to verify that the tax information you put on your FAFSA is correct. So if your taxes are linked, we don't have to request the tax information, we just might have to request a document that says, okay, who's in your household again, and did you file your taxes? And in that case, you might have to make a correction, or we might have to make a correction. But do not create another FAFSA. If there's a problem with your FAFSA, talk to the school that you're working with, or I would also maybe contact the number on studentgate.gov. But if you create a whole new FAFSA, it will cause some delay. So I recommend that you don't do that. And also, students and parents, please be very, very careful putting in Social Security numbers. We get a lot of transposed numbers, and it does cause a lot of issues when that Social Security number is wrong. I know my son's name starts with an H, so I get in a habit when I'm filling, when I used to fill out paperwork for him, I'd start to write my name because I write an H also like mine. So just kind of keep aware that you're actually using the student's Social Security number and information so that it doesn't delay any completion. Again, I talked a little bit about special circumstances. So, things are a little tough right now, whether it be financial situations, home situations. Don't be afraid to ask questions with the schools that you're applying for. A lot of times, we have different appeal processes. If you would lose a parent or lost a parent recently, if your parent lost a job, if you've taken on grandma and grandpa in the household and you're supporting them, there's different conditions that an appeal might be approved to change FAFSA information. I know at Walsh we have different forms based on the situation. You know, you let us know what the situation is, and we, you know, if it's a recent divorce, you know, where you might have a joint tax return from 2 years ago. If the divorce, you know, has been recent, we might separate that information for you, that financial information. So reach out to the financial aid offices, or, you know, your guidance counselors can kind of help you also to help you determine if you think you might meet a unusual circumstance or special circumstance. Also, high medical bills. Sometimes there might be high medical bills for the student, the parents. You know, if you can prove that within that year you paid so much money, that might adjust your FAFSA information also and qualify you for additional funds. Again, these are just some examples of some special circumstances. Some schools do take into private school tuition, some schools don't. So again, you know, coming from a small Catholic college, we get a lot of families that do send their children to private high schools and elementary schools. So we do appeals for private tuition. Some schools may not do that. So again, these are just some examples of things that you might want to talk to that college or university about maybe doing an appeal for.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you're saying when you're filing 2 years prior, 2 years your income, okay, but say your medical bills just happened this year.
So they can take that into consideration. So at Walsh, what we would do if you had a high amount of medical bills this year, we would request, like, proof that you've paid a lot of out-of-pocket this year, and that we might ask for the tax returns this year and base it on this year's information. As long as we can prove what we did and why we did it, we can make that adjustment. And
Where on the form are you able to say that, you know, like,
it is an appeal form that we would give you.
oh, you have to wait till your results come back?
Yes,
and then
yes.
you'll- oh.
Yes, if you're looking to file an appeal for any reason, you have to file the FAFSA first, get your results. A lot of times the school wants you to get the official award notification first, and then you can request to file an appeal.
And
But
this is
we have done that before, where we have approved medical expenses within that year. Or, you know, if a parent lost a job, let's say this past January, it's affected this year, so we will take this year's income into consideration.
And that's all done through the school year applying to.
Correct, correct. And please understand that you might have, if you're applying to like 3 different schools, one school might approve an appeal, one school may not. It is, we get audited every year, and we have to be comfortable with whatever appeal that we approve, that if we're questioned on that we're comfortable with the documentation of why we made that decision. So again, it's just based on, and if you're in a situation where you're looking at 2 different schools, that maybe one school approved it and one school did not, you can discuss that with those schools, because we reached out to another school. We denied an appeal for a situation, and we reached out to the school that approved it to ask how they approved it, why. Unfortunately, they wouldn't respond to us, so that's why we felt better about our decision not to approve it. But again, talk to your financial aid counselors at that school, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help through these